They laughed when they saw our blocky hull. They scoffed at our crude weapon mounts. But when our primitive warship shattered their finest fleet, their empire learned that underestimating Earth was a fatal mistake. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, running his hand along the rough edge of a console. The ship was not beautiful by any conventional standard. Its hull was blocky and angular, with exposed weapon pods jutting out at odd angles. The interior was equally utilitarian all-function, minimal aesthetics. But Jake knew what lay beneath that crude exterior: the most advanced quantum-based systems humanity had ever created, carefully hidden beneath layers of armor that looked primitive, but was anything but. "Admiring your handiwork again?" The voice belonged to Admiral Carl Peterson, who had entered the bridge silently. Jake straightened. "Just making sure everything's ready for the presentation, sir. The coalition delegates are waiting. Ambassador Morgan has already started the preliminary introductions." Peterson's face was impassive, but Jake could detect a hint of concern in his eyes. "This is our one shot, Commander. We need to make it count." Jake nodded. "The Defiant is ready, sir. Whether the coalition is ready for us, that's another question entirely." As they boarded the shuttle that would take them to Nexus Prime's diplomatic chamber, Jake found himself sitting beside Ambassador Lisa Morgan, Earth's lead diplomat in these negotiations. She was reviewing notes on her tablet, her expression focused. "Nervous?" she asked without looking up. "Shouldn't I be asking you that question, Ambassador?" She smiled thinly. "I've spent the last 3 years studying every species in the coalition. I know their cultural taboos, their diplomatic norms, their technological standards. But in the end, it all comes down to this ship of yours. If they don't respect our technology, they won't respect us." The shuttle docked with Nexus Prime, and Jake got his first glimpse of the diplomatic chamber through the viewport of vast crystalline structure, faceted like a diamond, catching and refracting the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 20 different alien species had gathered, some humanoid, others utterly foreign in appearance. They moved through the chamber with the easy confidence of those who belonged there, who had belonged there for centuries. Admiral Peterson led the way, with Jake and Ambassador Morgan following closely behind. As they entered, a holographic representation of the Defiant appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly to show every angle. Jake heard the murmurs immediately, some curious, most dismissive. A tall, elegant figure with scale-like skin that shimmered with iridescent blues and greens approached them. "Ambassador Morgan," the alien said, voice melodious despite the translator. "This is the vessel you believe will earn humanity a place among us." The mockery was thinly veiled. Before Morgan could respond, another delegate spoke up, a being composed of interlocking crystalline structures that glinted in the chamber's light. "Those weapon mounts are fully exposed. One targeted shot would disable them completely." "And the propulsion system," added another, a bulky creature with 4 arms and leathery skin. "It uses physical thrusters rather than gravitational manipulation. Primitive." Jake felt his jaw tighten but kept his expression neutral. These were the Corvash, the crystalline Xerians, and other species that had mastered space travel millennia before humans had even dreamed of the stars. Their ships were sleek marvels, protected by energy shields that could repel almost any conventional attack. They had never seen anything like the Defiant, which was precisely the point. The murmurs grew louder until a commanding voice cut through them all. "Enough!" The crowd parted to reveal Supreme Admiral Vexathari of the Zephyrian Empire, the dominant military power within the coalition. The admiral's skin was a deep violet, with luminescent patterns that pulsed with each word. 6 eyes, arranged in a horizontal line across an angular face, fixed on the human delegation. "I have reviewed your submission," Vexathari said, moving closer to the hologram. "This Defiant. is an insult to the technological standards of the Coalition. Look at this hull design that resembles a child's junk heap, not a warship. And these? The Admiral gestured to the kinetic weapon systems. Physical projectiles? You propose to throw rocks at your enemies? Laughter rippled through the chamber. Jake felt his face growing hot. But Ambassador Morgan stepped forward, her voice steady. Supreme Admiral, the UES Defiant represents humanity's unique approach to space warfare. We believe that— Unique, Vexathari interrupted. A kind word for obsolete. Your species is young, Ambassador Morgan. There is no shame in acknowledging that you have much to learn. The Zephyrian Empire offers Earth its protection. Under our guidance, your technology will advance. Your people will prosper. And in a few centuries, perhaps you will be ready for full membership in the Coalition. Jake recognized the offer for what it was, vassalage. Earth would become a client state of the Zephyrian Empire, surrendering its independence in exchange for protection it didn't need. Ambassador Morgan's expression didn't change, but her voice took on a new edge. We appreciate the offer, Supreme Admiral, but Earth seeks partnership, not protection. The Defiant may not match the aesthetic standards of Coalition vessels, but I assure you, its capabilities are substantial. Vexathari's luminescent patterns flashed brighter, a sign of anger. Jake had learned. You refuse our generosity? Then let me be clear. Ambassador, your prototype will never be accepted into the Coalition fleet. In fact, the Admiral moved closer, towering over Morgan. We will relish watching your Defiant break apart in space when it encounters a true warship. With that, Vexathari turned and left the chamber, most of the other delegates following in the Admiral's wake. The diplomatic meeting was over, and it had ended in disaster. Well, said Admiral Peterson quietly, as the chamber emptied. That could have gone better. Jake stared at the hologram of his ship, still rotating placidly in the center of the room, unaware of the scorn it had just endured. What happens now? Ambassador Morgan's expression was grim. Now we prepare for war. Commander Harrison, Admiral Vexathari just made a direct threat against an Earth vessel. The diplomatic approach has failed. Then the Defiant will have to prove its worth in combat, Admiral Peterson said, his voice low. And soon. 3 weeks later, Captain Amy Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, reading through the patrol orders that had just arrived from Earth Command. The ship had been assigned to the Kepler 442 Sistema remote sector near the border of Zephyrian space. Standard patrol duty, monitoring for any unusual activity, and showing the flag. Nothing remarkable. And yet something felt wrong. Lieutenant Tucker, she called to her intelligence officer, analyze these patrol instructions. The routing seems off. Ben Tucker, a slim man with dark hair and alert eyes, took the orders and began to work at his console. After several minutes, he looked up, his expression troubled. Captain, these instructions passed through 6 different communication relays before reaching us. Standard protocol would use 2, maybe 3 at most. Amy frowned. And I've detected encrypted transmissions from 3 of those relays to known Zephyrian communication hubs. The timing correlates exactly with our order transmission. The implication was clear. Someone had deliberately leaked their patrol route to the Zephyrians. The Defiant was being set up for an ambush. Options, Lieutenant? Tucker hesitated. We could request a route change, citing the security breach. And alert whoever betrayed us that we're onto them. No. Amy stood and moved to the central display. If the Zephyrians want to meet us at Kepler 442, then that's exactly where we'll go. But we'll be ready for them. She pressed a button on her console. Chief Engineer Walsh to the bridge. Dr. Carter as well. We need to discuss the quantum processors and disruption field. Within minutes, Tony Walsh and Helen Carter had joined Amy and Ben in the briefing room, adjacent to the bridge. Tony was a burly man with calloused hands and perpetual shadows under his eyes the result of weeks spent fine-tuning the Defiant's experimental systems. Dr. Carter was his opposite. Petite, meticulous, with a scientist's precise manner. "We've got a problem," Amy said without preamble. "The Zephyrians know our patrol route. They'll be waiting for us at Kepler 442, and I doubt they're planning a welcome party." Tony cursed under his breath. "The quantum processors are still running hot when we push them past 70% capacity. If we need both the adaptive AI and the disruption field at full power, we'll have limited operational time," Dr. Carter finished for him. "Maybe 10 minutes at most before we risk a cascade failure." Amy nodded. "Then we make those 10 minutes count. Lieutenant Tucker believes we'll be facing at least a dozen Zephyrian vessels, possibly including heavy cruisers." 12 against 1? Tony shook his head. "Even with our systems." "We have one advantage," Amy said firmly. "They're expecting us to emerge from hyperspace at the standard entry point for the Kepler system. But what if we don't?" Ben looked up sharply. "You're suggesting we exit hyperspace inside their formation?" "Exactly. They'll be arranged in an ambush pattern, weapons hot, shields up, waiting for us to drop out of hyperspace and straight into their firing solutions. Instead, we calculate a hyperspace exit that puts us right in the middle of their fleet." "That's incredibly risky," Dr. Carter protested. "The gravitational calculations would need to be precise to within a few meters. One mistake, and we could collide with an enemy vessel during emergence." "Then we'd better not make a mistake," Amy replied. "Lieutenant, I want you to work with navigation on those calculations. Chief Walsh, Dr. Carter, I need the quantum disruption field ready for immediate deployment the moment we exit hyperspace. If we can temporarily disable their shields and weapons, we'll have a critical advantage." "And if we can't?" Tony asked. Amy's expression hardened. "Then Earth loses its best chance at independence, and we all become subjects of the Zephyrian Empire. Get to work." As the officers dispersed to their stations, Amy remained in the briefing room, studying the tactical displays. She was about to risk 300 lives on a desperate gambit, using untested technology against a numerically superior force. The responsibility weighed on her, like a physical burden. She was still there when Jake Harrison entered. As the ship's designer, he had been assigned to the Defiant in an oversight capacity, reporting directly to Admiral Peterson about the vessel's performance. "Captain Rodriguez," he greeted her. "I've been briefed on the situation. I wanted to assure you that the Defiant will perform as designed." Amy looked up at him, noting the uncertainty in his eyes that belied his confident words. "Will it, Commander? Because right now, your design is the only thing standing between Earth and subjugation." Jake nodded, his jaw tight. "I know, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't afraid. But every system on this ship was built with one purpose: to level the playing field against technologically superior opponents. The Zephyrians think they know what the Defiant is capable of, but they're wrong. They see primitive design and assume primitive capabilities." "Let's hope their assumption costs them dearly," Amy said. She stood and extended her hand. "Because in about 12 hours, we're going to find out if your ugly duckling can fight." In the engineering section, Tony Walsh was pushing the quantum processors to their limit in simulated battle conditions. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he watched the temperature readouts climb dangerously high. "Reroute coolant from the secondary systems," he ordered a junior engineer. "We need to keep these processors below critical threshold." Dr. Helen Carter worked alongside him, monitoring the disruption field generator. "The field is stable in testing, but I'm concerned about the power drain. When activated, it's going to pull enormous energy from the main systems." "We'll manage," Tony grunted, making another adjustment. "We have to." On the bridge, Lieutenant Kate Adams, the Defiant's navigator, was working with Ben Tucker on the hyperspace calculations. Her fingers flew over the controls as she input variable after variable. "There," she said finally. I've plotted a hyperspace exit point that should place us within 1 kilometer of the predicted center of the Zephyrian formation. It's tight, we'll have ships all around us, but if your intelligence is correct about their likely formation, we should have just enough clearance to avoid a collision. Ben studied the calculations. And if my intelligence is wrong? Kate's expression remained professional, but her eyes betrayed her concern. Then, we emerge inside a Zephyrian cruiser, and this becomes the shortest battle in naval history. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, the weapons officer, was running final checks on the kinetic cannons. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most coalition species, the Defiant's main armament consisted of electromagnetically accelerated tungsten rods, simple in concept, but devastating in effect, especially against ships that relied primarily on energy shields rather than physical armor. Kinetic systems check complete, he reported. All weapon pods operational. Targeting systems linked to the AI predictive matrix. As the hours ticked by, the tension aboard the Defiant grew palpable. Every crew member understood the stakes, not just their own survival, but potentially the future of Earth itself. They were outnumbered and outgunned by conventional standards, facing an enemy that had been fighting space battles for centuries before humans had achieved their first orbit. Yet, there was a quiet determination that pervaded the ship. They believed in the Defiant, in the technology hidden beneath its ungainly exterior. More than that, they believed in each other. 6 hours before they were due to reach Kepler 442, Captain Rodriguez called the entire crew to attention via the ship-wide communication system. "This is your captain speaking. By now, you all know that we're heading into a trap. The Zephyrians are waiting for us, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They expect us to be easy prey." She paused. "They're wrong. Each of you was chosen for this mission because you're the best at what you do. You've trained with experimental systems that no other human crew has ever handled. You've prepared for this moment. Trust your training. Trust your shipmates. Most of all, trust this ship. The Defiant may not be pretty, but she's exactly what we need right now, a warship designed to fight against the odds and win. In a few hours, we're going to show the Zephyrian Empire exactly what humanity is capable of." Rodriguez out. In the final hour before arrival, Jake found himself in engineering, watching as Tony and his team made last-minute adjustments to the quantum processors. The systems were Jake's design, based on theoretical work that had been dismissed by many of his colleagues as too experimental, too risky. Now they were about to be tested in the most demanding conditions possible. "If they fail," he began. "They won't," Tony said firmly, not looking up from his work. "I won't let them." Jake wanted to believe him. The alternative, the death of everyone aboard, the subjugation of Earth was unthinkable. He made his way back to the bridge, where Captain Rodriguez had taken her position in the command chair. "All stations report ready, Captain," the first officer announced. Amy nodded. "Very well. Lieutenant Adams, initiate hyperspace jump on my mark." She took a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The stars outside the viewports elongated into streaks of light as the Defiant entered hyperspace. For a brief, suspended moment, the ship existed in that strange realm between normal space, and then they were through. The Defiant erupted into normal space in the midst of the Zephyrian fleet. 12 warships, arranged in a precise formation, their sleek hulls gleaming in the light of the Kepler star. For a split second, there was silence on the bridge as everyone took in the sight of the enemy vessels. So close that details of their hull markings were visible with the naked eye. Then chaos erupted. "Disruption field activated," Dr. Carter called from her station. "Weapons! Fire at will!" Amy ordered. "All batteries, all targets!" The Defiant's kinetic cannons roared to life, launching tungsten rods at incredible velocities. The first salvo struck the nearest Zephyrian cruiser, the Stellar Wrath, according to its hull markings, before its crew could even react to the unexpected appearance of an enemy vessel within their formation. The rods tore through the energy shields as if they weren't there, punching through the hull and sending debris spinning into space. Return fire came almost immediately, plasma beams lancing out from multiple vessels to strike the Defiant's hull. But instead of burning through armor, as they were designed to do, the beam's energy was partially absorbed by the quantum matrix embedded in the ship's outer layer, Jake's proudest innovation. Enemy vessels' command and control systems showing disruption effects, Ben reported from his tactical station. 3 ships experiencing power fluctuations. The AI was working too, analyzing each plasma beam's trajectory and energy signature, updating the Defiant's defensive patterns in real time. Kate Adams executed a series of maneuvers that seemed impossible for a ship of the Defiant's size and design, slipping between enemy vessels and denying them clear firing solutions. The Void Striker is losing power, Ben announced as another Zephyrian cruiser's lights flickered and dimmed. Shield systems failing. Target their propulsion systems, Amy ordered. I want that ship adrift. More kinetic rounds streaked toward the stricken vessel, striking with pinpoint accuracy. The Zephyrian cruiser spun out of control, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Night's Edge and Starpiercer showing similar system failures, Ben reported. The disruption field is working. But success came at a cost. The Defiant's quantum processors were running dangerously hot, their capacity strained by the simultaneous demands of the disruption field and the adaptive AI. Field stability at 62% and dropping, Dr. Carter warned. We have maybe 3 minutes before I have to shut it down or risk a cascade failure. Make them count, Amy replied grimly. Lieutenant Adams, bring us in close to the Starpiercer. Weapons. Prepare for point-blank engagement. The Defiant surged forward, its thrusters pushing it to maximum acceleration. The Zephyrian cruiser loomed larger in the viewports, its elegant lines a stark contrast to the blocky human vessel bearing down on it. At the last moment, Adams executed a perfect roll, bringing the Defiant's main batteries to bear directly on the enemy ship's command center. Fire! The kinetic cannons unleashed another barrage, the tungsten rods punching through the weakened shields and armored hull alike. Secondary explosions blossomed along the Zephyrian vessel as internal systems failed catastrophically. Captain, the remaining Zephyrian ships are coordinating, Ben warned. They're adjusting their attack pattern to compensate for our disruption field. Amy nodded. Dr. Carter, prepare for a final overload of the disruption field. All power to the emitters. Captain, that will burn out the entire system, Tony protested over the comm. Better than burning up with the ship, Amy replied. On my mark, now. Dr. Carter initiated the overload sequence. The Defiant shuddered as energy surged through its systems, culminating in a pulse of quantum disruption that expanded outward in all directions. The effect on the Zephyrian vessels was immediate and devastating. Ships that had been adjusting their formations suddenly lost guidance systems. Engines sputtered and died, and 2 cruisers, unable to alter their courses, collided in a spectacular explosion. Disruption field offline, Dr. Carter reported, her voice tight. Quantum processors cooling, but we've lost the field emitters entirely. Worth it, Amy said, watching as the Zephyrian fleet disintegrated before her eyes. 4 cruisers were now complete write-offs, 3 more severely crippled, and the remaining 5 were breaking formation, their captains clearly deciding that retreat was preferable to continuing the engagement. They're running, Ben said, disbelief evident in his voice. Let them go, Amy ordered. Let them tell their superiors exactly what happened here. She turned to Jake, who had been watching the battle unfold in stunned silence. Your ugly duckling just took down the pride of the Zephyrian fleet. Commander. Jake nodded slowly, still processing what he had witnessed. Everything had worked, the quantum matrix absorbing enemy fire, the disruption field disabling Zephyrian systems, the adaptive AI predicting attack patterns. All of his theoretical work, made real in spectacular fashion. "This isn't over," Amy cautioned, her expression sobering. "They'll regroup, adapt their tactics. We've postponed the war, not won it." "But we've proven the Defiant's capabilities," Jake replied. "That's what matters right now." News of the one-ship massacre at Kepler 442 spread rapidly through Zephyrian space. The empire that had dominated the Galactic Coalition for centuries had suffered an unprecedented defeat at the hands of a species they had dismissed as primitive. The humiliation was complete, and the response was swift. In the throne room of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zalthk of the Zephyrian Empire sat in barely controlled fury as Supreme Admiral Vexathari delivered the report of the Kepler 442 engagement. "Impossible!" the Emperor hissed, luminescent patterns flashing across deep purple skin. 12 of our finest cruisers against one human vessel? And you lost?" Vexathari's posture was rigid, humiliation evident in every line of the Admiral's body. "The human ship. Its capabilities were unexpected. Our intelligence was flawed. They possessed technology we did not anticipate." "What technology could possibly overcome a 12-to-1 numerical advantage?" The Emperor's voice was dangerously soft. "A quantum disruption field, Your Majesty. It temporarily disabled our shield generators, weapon systems, and in some cases, main power, and their hull." Vexathari hesitated. "It absorbed our plasma beams at an efficiency we've never encountered before." Emperor Zalthk rose from the throne, towering over the Admiral. "So their primitive appearance was a deception, and you fell for it." "Yes, Your Majesty." Vexathari's admission was barely audible. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, 6 eyes fixed on the Admiral with unblinking intensity. "The Dreadnought Apocalypse," he said finally. "How soon can it be operational?" Vexathari looked up, surprised. "The prototype is still under construction in the Vortex Nebula shipyards. It could be ready in perhaps 3 standard months. But you have 1 month." Emperor Zalthk cut in. "Divert all necessary resources. I want that superweapon ready to deploy against the humans. Their Defiant has made a mockery of our empire. It will be the first vessel destroyed by the apocalypse." "As you command, Your Majesty." Vexathari bowed deeply. "Do not fail me again, Admiral. This human ship, this Defiant, and all who serve on it must be obliterated. Only then will the Coalition respect our power again." On Earth, the news of the Defiant's victory was met with celebration, tempered by the knowledge that a more significant confrontation was inevitable. Admiral Peterson and General Collins, the head of Earth's combined defense forces, convened an emergency meeting with Captain Rodriguez and Commander Harrison via secure quantum communication. "First, let me congratulate you both," Admiral Peterson began. "The Defiant performed beyond our highest expectations. Earth owes you and your crew a debt of gratitude." "Thank you, sir," Amy replied. "But the Zephyrians will be back, and they'll be prepared for our disruption field next time." "Indeed," General Collins agreed. "Our intelligence suggests they're accelerating work on something called the Dreadnought Apocalypse, a superweapon of unprecedented destructive capability." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of superweapon?" "A Dreadnought-class vessel powered by a quantum singularity reactor," Admiral Peterson explained. "Theoretically capable of destroying an entire planet with a single volley from its main batteries." Silence fell over the communication as the implications sank in. Such a weapon would make the Zephyrian Empire unstoppable. Earth would be forced to submit or face annihilation. "Where is this dreadnought now?" Amy asked. "Under construction in the Vortex Nebula," General Collins replied. "A heavily defended region of space, surrounded by automated defense systems and a substantial Zephyrian fleet presence." "We need to destroy it before it's completed," Jake said firmly. Admiral Peterson nodded. "That's precisely why we're contacting you. The Defiant is the only vessel we have that stands a chance of penetrating the nebula's defenses. Your quantum disruption technology might allow you to bypass their security grid. With all due respect, sir, Amy said, you're asking us to take a single ship against an entire fleet, penetrate one of the most heavily fortified regions in Zephyrian space, and somehow destroy a superweapon before it can be deployed? Yes, Captain. That's exactly what we're asking, General Collins confirmed. Because the alternative is waiting for the apocalypse to come to us, and then it will be too late. Amy exchanged a glance with Jake. We'll need to modify the disruption field generator. The original was burned out during the Kepler engagement. And we'll need a way to target the Dreadnought's singularity reactor, Jake added. A conventional attack would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Dr. Helen Carter, who had been listening silently, spoke up. I may have a solution. If we can reconfigure the disruption field into a focused, BEMA, quantum resonance beam, and target it precisely at the singularity containment systems. You could trigger a cascade collapse, Jake finished, excitement building in his voice. The singularity would implode, taking the Dreadnought with it. Exactly, Dr. Carter confirmed. But we'd need to get very close to the target, and the beam would require enormous power, far more than we used at Kepler 442. Admiral Peterson's expression was grave. Can it be done in time? Our sources indicate the Zephyrians are pushing to have the apocalypse operational within a month. Amy straightened in her chair. We'll make it work, sir. The Defiant will be ready. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity, as the crew of the Defiant prepared for what might well be a suicide mission. The damaged systems from the Kepler engagement were repaired and upgraded, with Tony Walsh and his engineering team working around the clock to implement Dr. Carter's quantum resonance beam modifications. Jake found himself splitting his time between engineering and the tactical planning sessions led by Amy. The mission would require perfect coordination between every department on the ship and a healthy dose of luck. The nebula itself will provide some cover, Ben explained during one such session, pointing to the swirling purple and gold gas clouds displayed on the main view screen. The particulate matter interferes with Zephyrian sensors, creating blind spots we can exploit. But it also hampers our own navigation, Kate pointed out. We'll be flying partially blind ourselves. That's where your piloting skills come in, Lieutenant, Amy said. We need someone who can navigate by instinct when the sensors can't be trusted. As the preparations continued, Jake noticed a change in the crew's demeanor. The initial euphoria of their victory at Kepler 442 had given way to a quiet, determined focus. They knew the odds they faced, and they knew what failure would mean not just for themselves, but for Earth. One evening, Jake found Amy alone in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. Trouble sleeping? He asked, joining her at the viewport. Just thinking about what we're about to attempt, she replied. 12 ships was one thing. An entire defense fleet plus a superweapon. She shook her head. The crew deserves better odds. They believe in the ship, Jake said. And they believe in you. Amy turned to look at him. Do you? After all, it's your design we're betting our lives on. Jake was silent for a moment, considering the question. I believe in what we built, he said finally. But more than that, I believe in what this crew can do with it. The Defiant isn't just systems and hull plating, it's the people who make those systems work. Amy nodded slowly. Well, in about 48 hours, we're going to put that belief to the test. The day of the mission arrived with a tense quiet, settling over the Defiant. Final checks were completed, systems calibrated to their optimal settings, and the newly implemented quantum resonance beam tested as thoroughly as possible under the circumstances. All departments report ready, Captain, the first officer announced as Amy took her place on the bridge. Very well, Lieutenant Adams. Set course for the Vortex Nebula. Maximum speed. Let's go kill a dreadnought. The journey to the edge of the nebula took 16 hours, during which the crew rested in shifts, preparing for the ordeal ahead. When they arrived, the sight that greeted them was both beautiful and terrifying. Vast clouds of purple and gold gas, swirling in complex patterns, illuminated from within by the energy discharges that gave the region its name. And somewhere within that maelstrom lay the dreadnought Apocalypse and the entire might of the Zephyrian defense fleet. "Passive sensors only," Amy ordered as they approached the outer boundary of the nebula. "Lieutenant Tucker, any sign they've detected our approach?" Ben studied his displays. "Negative, Captain. No change in communications traffic or defense grid status." "Then let's not give them a reason to look our way. Lieutenant Adams, take us innis and slow." Kate guided the Defiant into the outer reaches of the nebula, where the gas was thinner, but still provided some concealment. As they penetrated deeper, the sensors began to lose effectiveness, the readings becoming increasingly distorted by the particulate matter. "Switching to visual guidance," Kate announced, her hands steady on the controls despite the tension evident in her voice. The Defiant slipped through the swirling gases, navigating narrow corridors between denser cloud formations. Occasionally, they caught glimpses of the automated defense systems, missile platforms, and energy turrets, positioned at strategic intervals throughout the nebula. "Contact," Ben warned suddenly. "Zephyrian patrol vessel, bearing 140, range 12 kilometers. "Hold position," Amy ordered. "Power down all non-essential systems." The Defiant went dark, drifting silently as the Zephyrian patrol passed by, its sensors sweeping the area. For tense minutes, the bridge crew barely breathed, watching the enemy vessel's progress on the few displays still active. "They're moving off," Ben reported finally. "No indication they detected us." "Resume course," Amy said. "But stay in the densest parts of the nebula. I want as much gas between us and their sensors as possible." For hours, they continued their careful advance, dodging patrols and navigating the treacherous gas formations. Twice more they were forced to hide as Zephyrian vessels passed nearby. And once, they nearly collided with an automated defense platform hidden in a particularly dense cloud. Finally, Ben's console lit up with new readings. "Captain, I'm detecting an enormous power signature ahead. It has to be the Apocalypse." "On screen," Amy ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a clearing in the nebula's gases, and within it, the dreadnought Apocalypse. The vessel was colossal, easily 10 times the size of the Defiant, its hull a gleaming black that seemed to absorb the light around it. Various sections were still under construction, with work crews and smaller vessels swarming around it like insects attending to a queen. "My God," Jake whispered, "it's bigger than I imagined." "And not yet complete," Amy noted. "That gives us an advantage. Dr. Carter, how close do we need to be for the resonance beam to be effective?" "Based on the power readings I'm detecting, we need to be within 5 kilometers, ideally less," Dr. Carter replied. "And we'll need a clear line of sight to the reactor housing." Amy studied the tactical display. "There's our target, that spherical section near the stern. That has to be the singularity containment." "Confirmed," Dr. Carter agreed. "But it's the most heavily armored part of the ship, and it's surrounded by defensive batteries, which means we'll have to get past the entire defense fleet to reach it," Jake concluded. "Not necessarily," Kate interjected. "Look at this gas formation." She indicated a particularly dense cloud near the dreadnought. "If we can move through it undetected, we could emerge less than 2 kilometers from the target area." Amy considered the suggestion. "That's dangerously close to their automated defenses. But they wouldn't expect an attack from that direction precisely because of those defenses," Ben pointed out. "They'll be watching the approach vectors, not their own backyard." "It's worth the risk," Amy decided. "Lieutenant Adams, plot a course through that cloud formation. Lieutenant Commander Parker, ready all weapons. We'll need to clear a path to the target once we're detected. Dr. Carter, begin power-up sequence for the resonance beam." As the Defiant slipped deeper into the nebula, approaching the massive dreadnought, the tension on the bridge became almost unbearable. Every crew member knew that in minutes, They would either strike a crippling blow against the Zephyrian Empire or die in the attempt. On the bridge of the dreadnought apocalypse, Emperor Zalth stood beside Supreme Admiral Vexathari, watching the construction progress on massive view screens. The weapon systems are at 80% completion. Your Majesty, Vexathari reported. The Singularity Reactor is stable and providing power to all essential systems. We should be ready for our first full power test within days. Excellent, the Emperor replied, luminescent patterns pulsing with satisfaction. And the human vessel? Has there been any sign of it since the Kepler engagement? None. Your Majesty, our intelligence suggests they've withdrawn to Earth space to lick their wounds. They know they cannot stand against the apocalypse. Emperor Zalth's 6 eyes narrowed. Do not underestimate them again, Admiral. That mistake has already cost us dearly. Before Vexathari could respond, an alarm sounded, and one of the bridge officers called out in alarm, Unidentified vessel detected! It's emerging from the cloud formation directly aft. Impossible, Vexathari snapped. Nothing could navigate those gas densities. The view screen shifted to show a blocky, angular ship emerging from the swirling gases, the Defiant. The human vessel, Emperor Zalth hissed. How did they find us? All defensive batteries, open fire, Vexathari ordered. Launch interceptors, destroy that ship. Aboard the Defiant, alarms blared as they emerged from the cloud cover, and the dreadnought's defenses came to life. Multiple weapons locks, Ben shouted. Energy signatures from the dreadnought's main batteries. Evasive maneuvers, Amy ordered. Tony, sync our quantum processors with their reactor signature. Dr. Carter, stand by the resonance beam. The Defiant surged forward as the first volley of plasma fire streaked past, missing by meters. Kate's hands flew over the controls, guiding the ship in a series of maneuvers that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size and design. Zephyrian cruisers moving to intercept, Ben reported. 6 vessels, bearing 180. Lieutenant Commander Parker, target the closest cruiser. Clear us a path to the reactor housing. The Defiant's kinetic cannons roared to life, launching tungsten rods at the approaching Zephyrian vessels. The first cruiser took multiple hits, its shields flaring and failing under the barrage. Cruiser disabled, Parker reported. But the others are adapting their approach. They're using the firing patterns we've already demonstrated. Then show them something new, Amy replied. Randomize firing solutions, maximum dispersion. The quantum processors were working at full capacity now, the adaptive AI analyzing and predicting enemy movements in real time. As the Zephyrian cruisers adjusted their tactics, the Defiant was already countering, its weapons finding gaps in their formations. 2 more cruisers disabled, Parker announced. But we're taking heavy fire from the dreadnought's defensive batteries. The Defiant shuddered as multiple plasma beams struck its hull, the quantum matrix struggling to absorb the enormous energy. Hull integrity at 74%, Tony reported from engineering. The matrix is holding, but we can't take sustained fire like this. We won't have to, Amy said grimly. Lieutenant Adams, bring us to position Alpha. All power to forward shields. Kate executed a diving roll that brought the Defiant beneath the arc of the dreadnought's main batteries, into the relatively unprotected area near the reactor housing. Smaller defensive turrets tracked them, pouring fire into their path. But the ship's adaptive AI had cataloged their firing sequences. Every shot was sidestepped by the evasive pattern that Jake had designated Omega in the ship's original design specifications. We're in position, Kate reported. Distance to target, 1.8 kilometers. Dr. Carter, status of the resonance beam? Charged and ready. Captain, targeting solution locked on the Singularity containment field. Amy took a deep breath. Fire! Dr. Carter activated the quantum resonance beam. Unlike the disruptive field they had used at Kepler 442, the beam was invisible to the naked eye, focused pulse of quantum energy that penetrated through the dreadnought's outer defenses, through layers of armor, directly into the heart of the Singularity reactor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dreadnought shuddered violently, energy discharges crackling across its hull. "Direct hit!" Dr. Carter exclaimed. "The resonance is causing a cascade effect in the containment field." On the bridge of the apocalypse, chaos erupted as systems failed in rapid succession. "What's happening?" Emperor Zalth demanded, as the lights flickered and displays went dark. "Containment field destabilizing," a frantic engineer reported. "The singularity is collapsing in on itself." "Evacuate the vessel," Vexathari ordered. "All personnel to escape pods." The Emperor stared in disbelief at the small blip on the tactical display that represented the Defiant. "One ship," he murmured. "One primitive, ugly ship. Aboard the Defiant." The crew watched in awe as the massive dreadnought began to implode. Sections of the hull crumpling inward as the quantum singularity at its heart collapsed. There was no conventional explosions, just a progressive, inevitable disintegration as the fabric of space-time reasserted itself where the artificial singularity had been. "My God," Jake breathed. "It worked. It actually worked." "Multiple vessels approaching," Ben announced suddenly. "New signatures. They're not Zephyrian." The view screen shifted to show a fleet of ships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the nebula vessels of the Corvash Confederation, the crystalline Zarians, and half a dozen other coalition species. "We're being hailed," Ben reported, surprise evident in his voice. "On screen," Amy ordered. The face that appeared was that of a Corvash commander. Leathery skin and 4 arms visible in the frame. "Captain Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Defiant. This is Commander Vrex of the Corvash flagship Resilient. We observed your engagement with the Dreadnought Apocalypse and stand ready to assist." Amy blinked in surprise. "Commander Vrex, your assistance is appreciated, but unexpected. The Corvash Confederation is allied with the Zephyrian Empire." "Was allied," Vrex corrected. "The Empire's arrogance has long tested our patience. Your actions against their fleet at Kepler 442, and now the destruction of their superweapon, have proven that the balance of power is shifting. We choose to align ourselves with the ascendant power with Earth." Similar messages came in from the other vessel species that had once mocked the Defiant, now sought alliance with the humans, who had demonstrated such unexpected capability. The destruction of the apocalypse had done more than eliminate a weapon. It had shattered the aura of invincibility that had surrounded the Zephyrian Empire for centuries. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zalth sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in just of the apocalypse's destruction, but of planetary governors declaring independence, client worlds severing ties with the Empire, and Zephyrian fleets standing down rather than fighting against overwhelming odds. Supreme Admiral Vexathari knelt before the throne, head bowed in defeat. "Your Majesty, we cannot recover from this. The coalition is fracturing, and our former allies are turning against us. We must sue for peace while we still have a position of strength from which to negotiate." "Peace?" Emperor Zalth's voice was hollow. "With the humans? With Earth and its new allies, yes. Unconditional surrender is our only option." The Emperor stared at the Admiral for a long moment, luminescent patterns dim and sluggish across his skin. "So be it," he said finally. "Send the communication. The Zephyrian Empire surrenders." The news of the Zephyrian surrender spread rapidly throughout the coalition. Species that had been subjugated for generations seized the opportunity to declare their independence, while others sought new alliances in the power vacuum left by the Empire's collapse. 2 weeks after the destruction of the apocalypse, the Defiant returned to Nexus Prime. This time, there were no sneers or dismissive remarks as the blocky human vessel docked. Instead, citizens of dozens of different species lined the corridors, cheering the ship that had changed the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Morgan met Captain Rodriguez and Commander Harrison as they disembarked. "Well done, both of you," she said warmly. Earth has been granted full membership in the newly restructured coalition as an equal partner, not a vassal state. And the Zephyrians, Jake asked. They've accepted terms that limit their military capabilities and require reparations to former client worlds. Morgan explained. The Empire as we knew it is finished. Amy nodded, her expression somber despite the victory. And the crew of the Defiant? Heroes. Everyone, Morgan assured her. Earth Command has approved commendations for all of you. And there's talk of a new Fleet Defiance-class vessels, based on Commander Harrison's design. Later, as the formal ceremonies concluded, Amy found herself clearing her personal items from her station on the bridge. The memories of the past weeks were still vivid, the high-pressure maneuvers inside the nebula, the moment when the apocalypse began to implode, the cheering crowds at Nexus Prime. Through it all, one lesson stood out: the importance of unity, not just among humans, but across species. Jake Harrison received his promotion to Admiral with mixed emotions. The recognition was gratifying, but he found himself missing the direct involvement with the Defiant systems. As he stood on Nexus Prime's observation deck, watching the activity in the space dock below, he could see human vessels moving alongside alien ships, cooperating in ways that would have been unimaginable just months earlier. His ugly design had done more than win battles. It had catalyzed a new era of interstellar cooperation. The blocky hull and exposed weapon pods that had once been mocked were now being studied by engineers from a dozen different species, each seeking to understand and adapt the innovations hidden beneath that crude exterior. In the months that followed, Dr. Helen Carter's fusion of human adaptive quantum AI with Zephyrian processing cores became the blueprint for a new generation of coalition warships vessels that combined the best elements of multiple species technologies. Chief Engineer Tony Walsh found himself heading a joint human-alien research outpost, working to adapt quantum disruption technology for peaceful purposes, such as defense grids and energy stabilization systems. Ambassador Morgan led Earth's first full council session at Nexus Prime, advocating for a new approach to interstellar relations. "Let us judge no species by appearances or age," she said to the assembled delegates. "Let us instead value innovation over superiority, cooperation over dominance." The principles she outlined were enshrined in a new coalition charter, marking a fundamental shift in how the galactic community operated. Throughout former Zephyrian space, newly independent worlds celebrated what came to be known as Defiance Day, commemorating the events that had toppled an empire and freed thousands of worlds from subjugation. Captain Amy Rodriguez was offered command of a new human-led task force stationed at Nexus Prime. To everyone's surprise, she declined, opting instead to serve as an instructor at the Coalition's tactical academies, passing on the lessons of adaptability and courage that had proven so crucial during the conflict. "I can do more good teaching the next generation than commanding another ship," she explained when Jake questioned her decision. The Defiant was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Nothing could match it. Jake understood. As he oversaw construction of the first official Defiance-class vessels, he insisted on maintaining elements of the original's ugly hull design, not for tactical reasons, but as a symbol of human resilience and a reminder that appearance doesn't dictate worth. 1 year after the surrender of the Zephyrian Empire, Admiral Jake Harrison stood on Nexus Prime's observation deck, watching a mixed squadron of human and alien ships departing on a joint peacekeeping mission. The lead vessel was a Defiance-class cruiser, its blocky hull instantly recognizable despite the refinements that had been incorporated into the new design. "They mocked our prototype," he said softly to himself. But in the end, it taught the galaxy that being different can be humanity's greatest strength. As the squadron disappeared into hyperspace, Jake smiled. The UES Defiant might have been an ugly duckling by conventional standards, but it had changed the course of galactic history, proving once and for all that appearances can be deceiving, and that underestimating an opponent, no matter how primitive they might seem, could be a fatal mistake.